Hey there, Neutron Tech crew! Today we're hanging out with Duy Hai, who's about to show us something pretty incredible, a completely original motorcycle that he built from absolutely nothing. The whole thing kicks off with creating a basic skeleton using galvanized square steel tubes. Now, here's where things get interesting. Duy Hai puts together his own version of a steering system that's refreshingly simple yet totally functional. He takes some recycled telescopic fork tubes, shapes his own steering stem by hand, and creates a custom triple clamp setup. This approach skips all those expensive cast parts you'd normally need, but it still follows the basic physics of rake angles and how forces travel through the bike. The trade-off? You get this really angular modular steering setup that changes the entire game of how forces move through the frame. It means everything else has to be designed differently to work with this unique front end. The geometry becomes more industrial, more raw, and honestly, more visually striking than anything rolling off a production line. It's engineering that makes you think differently about what a motorcycle needs to be. Since that front-end setup uses a basic welded vertical column for steering, it doesn't have the smooth shock absorption and precise steering feel you would get from a factory bike. The raw mechanical nature of it means the rest of the frame has to work overtime to make up for it. That's why he pays extra attention to creating triangulated steel tube structures and setting up that rear monoshock suspension just right. The goal here is keeping everything lightweight, so before he can mount any exhaust components he needs to shape the bodywork. He begins by creating a skeleton for the outer panels using thin metal wire with transparent tape stretched across as a temporary skin. This is actually a clever prototyping trick borrowed from custom car builders and industrial designers. The wire bends easily to create complex curves, while the tape gives just enough surface to visualize the final shape. It's like sketching in 3 dimensions, allowing quick adjustments before committing to permanent materials. Next up, he applies Bondo over that wire skeleton. This stuff hardens fast and sticks incredibly well to smooth surfaces. These properties let Duy Hai transform a rough wire outline into smooth, sculpted body panels that actually look like something. The Bondo goes on thick at first, then gets carved and sanded down to create flowing surfaces. Meanwhile, the welding continues, so he can mount the foot peg assembly to the frame sides. Getting this right means making sure the gear shifter has enough room to move properly without hitting the engine case or getting in the way of the swing arm's motion. The placement affects rider comfort too. Now, you might wonder why Duy Hai starts layering fiberglass over the Bondo. Here's the thing, body filler alone is pretty fragile. It'll crack if it vibrates too much flexes, or even if temperatures swing too far. After the fiberglass sections fully harden, he carefully removes each piece from the wire skeleton and body form. Following a thorough inspection, he attacks the panels with grinders and sandpaper. This process eliminates surface flaws while refining the curves and smoothing out the transitions where different surfaces meet. The grinding throws sparks and dust everywhere, requiring protective gear and patience. Starting with coarse grits to remove major imperfections, he gradually works through finer and finer sandpaper until the surface feels like silk under your hand. While working on structure, every fiberglass component gets precisely trimmed using cutting discs or rotary tools. He carefully removes extra material from the edges, creating clean lines and preparing the spots where pieces will join together. This trimming process requires a steady hand, because fiberglass can chip or crack if you rush it. The edges need to be perfectly smooth since any roughness will show through the paint later. To complement those hard structural panels, he creates softer components like seat padding and cushioned contact points. These get stretched and glued over shaped forms, providing comfortable spots for the rider while creating visual contrast against all those sharp-edged panels. After shaping everything structurally and adding upholstery, the panels receive a coat of high-adhesion primer. This primer does triple duty. It fills tiny holes you can't even see. Choosing the finish becomes both an aesthetic choice and a practical one. A semi-gloss or matte top coat might get selected to cut down on glare and boost UV protection. Plus, these finishes really make those geometric lines carved into the panels pop visually. The paint chemistry matters too. Modern automotive paints include UV blockers and flex agents that help them survive years of sun exposure and vibration. Now that the body panels are shaped and painted to perfection, attention shifts back to the mechanical guts of this beast. Duy Hai takes apart various motorcycle sections that were previously assembled, including the engine itself. This isn't moving backwards, it's actually a smart, calculated phase that shows thoughtful workflow planning. Sometimes you need to build things up just to understand how they fit together, then take them apart again to do the job properly. In those early stages, mounting the engine in the frame served several purposes. It helped establish structural relationships, allowed testing of space limitations, and most importantly, made accurate body panel modeling possible. Having it there ensured all mounting systems worked with the engine's actual dimensions. The power plant he selected is a Yamaha 4-stroke horizontal single-cylinder unit, the kind typically found in small step-through motorcycles. Famous for being mechanically straightforward, consistently reliable, and easy to maintain, it slots perfectly into this custom frame. These engines might not win any horsepower contests, but they run forever with basic maintenance. The horizontal cylinder layout also keeps the center of gravity low, improving handling. Plus, parts are cheap and available everywhere, making this a practical choice for a custom build. Duy Hai starts prepping by completely taking apart and degreasing the engine. Years of use leave carbon deposits, old oil residue, and road grime all over engine cases and components. After refinishing all the parts, he installs fresh gaskets on every surface where components meet. This replacement prevents future leaks that could hurt engine performance or get oil all over those nice body panels. Old gaskets compress and harden over time, losing their ability to seal properly. The new ones are soft and pliable, conforming perfectly to surface irregularities. Using quality gaskets here means not having to tear the engine apart again in 6 months when something starts leaking. With that done, attention returns to the steel tube frame for its final strengthening phase. Those quick tack welds and basic joints that held everything in alignment during construction and bodywork now need upgrading. Full penetration welds at critical connection points guarantee maximum strength where it counts. Putting it all back together starts with the main steel chassis, then the front-end components bolt back onto the primary frame structure. That custom-made steering assembly gets torqued down precisely to keep those fork tubes locked in place. Any misalignment here would ruin the handling or create friction when the suspension compresses. Getting smooth movement and perfect parallel alignment of those fork tubes requires careful attention during this phase. Even a fraction of a degree off can make the bike feel weird or cause premature tire wear. Precision here pays off every time you ride. Next comes work on the shock system, including reconditioning and painting that coil-over rear suspension unit. Getting the spring back onto the freshly painted damper needs some kind of compression tool or fixture. Here it's done with improvised steel angle brackets that safely compress the coil for secure assembly. Working with compressed springs demands respect. They store tremendous energy that can cause serious injury if released suddenly. The makeshift tools might look crude, but they do the job safely and effectively. The attachment points need precise alignment both front to back and vertically within that triangulated rear frame section. This guarantees that compression and rebound forces from the suspension spread evenly through the structure. With this custom design, the bracket geometry needs special attention to match the damper's stroke length perfectly. The wheels go on next, bolted down to proper torque specifications. For a motorcycle built like this one, with its unique box-section steel tube structure, checking axle alignment both visually and mechanically becomes critical to ensure the wheel spins freely without wobbling sideways. For the engine installation, precise alignment and secure mounting happen through custom-cut steel plates. The frame's engine cradle needs to match up with the engine's mounting points. Since this layout uses 3 or 4 mounting locations, custom brackets have to line up with them perfectly without putting stress on the engine case. These brackets get cut from thick steel plate drilled to match the engine's bolt pattern, then welded to the frame at exactly the right angle. It's precision metalwork that requires measuring 3 times and cutting once. The motorcycle's nearly complete at this stage, but the entire reassembly demands careful attention throughout. This methodical process starts with proper planning and doing things in the right order. Every bolt gets matched with appropriate washers, spacers, or bushings as needed. Checking that everything fits within acceptable tolerances becomes essential, especially with such an unconventional frame design. While this engine gets chosen frequently for small motorcycles because it's simple and reliable, fitting it into a completely handmade chassis demands thorough verification that every connection point fits exactly right. Clearances get checked with feeler gauges alignments verified with straight edges, and every moving part tested through its full range of motion. This attention to detail prevents problems that would be much harder to fix once everything's buttoned up. When we talk about fitment tolerances, we mean how much wiggle room is acceptable between parts that connect together. This covers engine mounting brackets, carburetor positioning, exhaust pipe routing, sprocket alignment, and air intake geometry. Since this steel frame was built from square tubing, it doesn't have any of those pre-made mounting points you'd find on a factory bike. After mounting all the major components, it's time to verify everything works properly together. This means checking that controls move freely, the throttle opens smoothly, brakes engage properly, and nothing interferes with anything else through the full range of suspension. Travel and steering lock. It's a systematic process of moving every control and watching for problems before adding fluids and firing it up. Installing those final body panels represents the completion of this wildly unconventional and highly creative design concept. Looking at the overall composition, those mounted panels show deliberate thought in how visual weight gets distributed. The substantial mass up front finds balance through that prominent rear section where the floating seat and tail section come together. Additionally, those matte and satin finishes applied to different areas work to highlight and contrast against the smoother panel tones. The panels themselves tell a story too. They clearly show the builder's desire to go beyond copying existing designs or paying tribute to classics, venturing instead into pure creative territory. This machine clearly emerged from pure imagination and experimentation, not from any production line or performance handbook. The end result makes a powerful statement about mechanical artistry. Duy Hai's motorcycle exists to be ridden, not to break speed records. Watching it roll, you can see it delivers something special, a direct, lightweight, responsive ride that's incredibly personal to its creator. It represents months of problem-solving creative thinking and skilled craftsmanship condensed into a single machine that defies easy categorization. This is what happens when someone decides to build exactly what they envision without compromise or convention getting in the way.